Timothy Geithner took to the podium this week to outline his new plan to shore up the credit markets.
And the stock market promptly fell 5%. Here to outline the outline is the watchdog on Wall Street, Chris Markowski. Good morning, buddy.
Good morning. Timothy Geithner, the water world of Treasury Secretaries this past week,
I think Kevin Costner will take umbrage with that, yes.
So you know, I think the criticism here was that he came out and sort of said his plan was that the plan that we had the last time we put in the plan, and it's just more money in the plan.
A plan to make a plan. Maybe I'm going to come up with a plan. It kind of reminded me back when we were in high school. I remember we were learning how to write term papers and things like that. And they said first you got to hand in an outline, and then they would grade you on that. Then you have to do your term paper. Well, he handed in an outline, and the markets were expecting much more than that. More basically, what are you going to do? What's going to happen next? And didn't get that, and the markets were very, very upset.
What could he have said that would have kept the markets at least at an even pace, or maybe spiked them just?
Well, basically told them what you're going to do next, instead of speaking in generalities and, you know, this is what we want to do. How are you planning on doing this? What are the first steps? When is this going to take place? Give us a timeline. And he didn't get that. He also didn't exactly exude any confidence in regards to the markets. Yesterday, you had the various different heads of the banks getting grilled by congressional leaders, and they actually, you know, brought more confidence to the markets in regards to what their financial situation is rather than what he did.
Okay, let's talk about the stimulus package.
Yeah, the stimulus package passed, and there's some tax relief for Americans in that.
Windfall.
What is the tax relief that we're going to see?
If you're making less than $75,000 a year, $144,000 for couples, starting in June, you're going to get an extra $13 in your paycheck. Then it's going to be down to $8 in January until the $400 is used up.
Let me tell you.
Congratulations.
Let me tell you something. $13, I can. You know what I can do with that?
What?
I can pay half of my last B of A overdraft fee. So I'm excited about that.
And B of A is still getting a bailout. Yeah, amazing.
Actually, yesterday, B of A, Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, and JP Morgan Chase, I think they're going to give them money back.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, because they don't want to be under their thumb anymore, right? They're tired of prostrating themselves in front of Congress.
Watching that thing yesterday was embarrassing. I can't wait to watch Saturday Night Live this week, because for the parody that you get watching these guys saying, excuse me, why are you making my ATM card numbers too long? Or I mean, it was just the questions that they were posing to these guys were just absolutely ridiculous.
Chris, thank you.
Alrighty, well, after weeks of heavy negotiation, it appears President Obama's ambitious stimulus package is going to pass both the House and the Senate. But is the plan enough to kickstart the economy? I guess that's the big question.
Sure. Joining us now to discuss the plan is the author of The Cure for Money Madness, Spencer Sherman, and the watchdog on Wall Street, Mr. Chris Markowski. Guys, welcome. Okay.
Thank you. Great
Time to talk stimulus.
Yeah, let's talk a little stimulus. We'll start with our guest here. Is money madness what we're experiencing here, I guess, in the Congress?
Well, money madness got us into this situation, buying houses that we couldn't afford. I mean, Bear Stearns putting all their money in one basket, namely mortgages. That's what got us here. I mean, of course, then there's the money madness of trying to work through and figure out what's the right stimulus plan, what's going to get us through fear and back to confidence in this economy.
Now, what do you say to the people that say that this is just way too much money, that we're trying to just throw money at money problems, and really what we should do is kind of back off a little bit? How did you respond to that?
Well, the economy is in such dysfunction that we have to really shock the system. We need to do a lot. And in the Great Depression, one of the things we learned is that if you don't have a sustained approach of stimulus, you'll probably fail, or it will take a lot longer. I mean, the Great Depression lasted 12 years. It could have lasted 3 or 4 years. So there's no guarantee whatever we do, but we've got to do something.
Okay, question for you, Mark. Are the right things in the Markowski? I always want to call him Mark because it's like, I swear I have your name dyslexia.
Okay, Jackson.
Thank you, exactly. Fair game. Are the right things in the stimulus package?
I think there's some things in there, okay. They pulled back to some degree. I have no trouble with them spending on bridges and roads, but you don't want to get into the situation where you're digging a hole and then you're filling the hole in, and there's projects just to have projects. The Soviet Union used to have that. We've been reading the stories about them having motorcycle factories where it'd go down an assembly line, go off in the end, they'd melt the thing down, they'd have to start it all over again. And that's the last
just
thing,
to work.
yeah. In regards to the Great Depression, I think they spent a lot during the Great Depression, but I think the real reason why we ended up getting into Great Depression was the protectionist type methods. I remember from Ferris Bueller when he's like sitting in the classroom, Ben Stein, he's like the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act, and the protectionism that comes into play. I think that we have to get that out of the bill because there's a little bit in there, and some of our trading partners weren't too thrilled with that.
And wasn't unemployment back then around 30% too, so it's sort of a different environment these days?
About 25% back then. We're at about 7-8% now, except in certain places like in Indiana where it's 15%. Yeah.
It's scary.
Okay. We have just a couple seconds left. What should people be doing to sort of shore up their own personal finances?
Okay, the first step is to do an intentional spending statement for this year, 09, and to decide what you're going to spend and give yourself a range for each category of spending.
After weeks of heavy negotiation, it appears that President Obama's ambitious stimulus package is going to pass. But is the plan enough to get our economy back on track? I'm joined now by the Watchdog on Wall Street, Chris Markowski, and the author of The Cure for the Money Madness, Spencer Sherman. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
I'm flanked here by money experts. I feel myself getting richer just on the energy coming off of you two. All right, so we got to talk about the stimulus. And Chris, I mean, what is there in there that we should look at as individuals in terms of how it's going to shore up our own financial house?
I don't think anybody should be looking to the stimulus package to shore up their financial house because it's not going to happen. That's going to have to, it's like everything else in life. You're going to have to do it on your own. Everything in life that has meaning, value, and work and worth involves work, time, and effort. It's as simple as that. And there's some tips in there that actually point to that about getting your financial house in order. The government can't fix your financials. The government's not going to get rid of your credit card debt. The government's not going to get rid of your mortgage. That's just not going to happen. You're going to have to do that on your own.
All right, so he's giving you a plug here. A smooth transition over to you, sir. What are some of the things that people can do? I mean, because we are facing perhaps years of economic slowdown, and so, I mean, how do we make sure that our own houses are stimulated? How do we do our own bailout here, I guess?
Yes. One thing is, you mentioned credit cards. What a great time to take a credit card holiday. My wife and I do this every year. Take a 1-month, 2-month break from credit cards. It's impossible to overspend when you just use cash. You just can't do it. That's how our great-grandparents handled their finances, and life was simple back then.
You look in your wallet, there's nothing in there.
Yes.
I'm not going to buy anything else.
Exactly, exactly. So that's one step to shore things up. The next thing is we have to start reversing the fear that we all feel, the paralysis. And one way to do that, and this is counterintuitive, is to start giving. Even if it's $1 a day, $1 a week, 10 minutes a week. That breaks up the fear. You can't be fearful and generous at the same time.
That's a great, that is such a great tip because I think there's so much doom and gloom out there, and if we all have a little bit of faith in each other, give back to each other, that's going to make you feel better about your own situation as well.
Well, I would add there's also never been a better time to start a second business. This is where big businesses, where fortunes are made during recessions and depressions. This is where the real money is made, taking advantage of these situations.
Absolutely, Chris. This is an opportunity to buy low, which is the simple wisdom we learned in 2nd grade. We forget this wisdom when it comes to our investments, and we forget this is the time to buy investments, and it's time to start a business, gather up some friends, and go in on a business together.
Alrighty, well, thank you so much. Great stuff. We've been talking all things financial with our money guy, Mr. Chris Markowski.
And the Watchdog on Wall Street is back to answer some of your questions. Welcome back, Chris.
It's great to be back.
All right, so you were in the chat room. Some people had some questions for you there.
Yeah, it's tough to compete with Octomom, though.
A lot of Octomom chatter.
It's a tough one to compete with in the chat room.
Well, I tell you what, just use 4 or 5 of your arms and tell us what the financial advice is.
I just hope she doesn't call and ask me for financial advice, because I'll be like,
good luck with
that. Can I help you? I know how much Enfamil costs, okay?
Enfamil, I love it.
If somebody has a little extra money right now, what advice would you give them? Because I know that's one question that keeps popping up sometimes in the chat room.
Well, I always try to tell people the earlier you start to save, the less you have to save. You have to let the power of compounding work for you. And we've kind of discussed this in the past, and everybody is so caught up, whether we're in a bull market or in a bear market, it all depends on how old you are and where your position is in life. And if you're young and you're in that stage where you're accumulating assets, where you want to pay for your daughter's wedding down the road, pay for a retirement, pay for a boat, I don't care what it may be, now's the time to be doing it. If you're closer to where you want the spending phase, well then you're not so much of a bull. You're more of a bear, and you're shifting your assets into things that are much more stable.
Right. So somebody was asking you some specific questions about the merger between Sirius and XM. What was that
Sirius,
about?
well, it's also the fact that they're going into bankruptcy. There's talks of them going into bankruptcy, and people are buying up their debt. Very similar to what happened to Kmart, with Eddie Lampert did with Kmart, is he bought up all the debt in it, and what he did was he took, the company went bankrupt, and he did a debt for equity swap, or traded it, and then he ended up owning the whole thing. So the owners of that stock, not looking good for you.
Oh, man. Does that mean the end of Sirius satellite radio, do you think?
Oh, no. Somebody's just going to own it on the cheap.
Okay.
It's going to be a bargain like you're always talking about. Okay.